Oh, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, hello there, I'm Degen, this is Marvel Heroes 2015, and this is all things X-23. In this video, we're going to talk about all of X-23's powers, synergies, costumes, and just take a look at X-23. And first up with the costumes, this is the first X-23 costume. This is called the X-23 Classic costume. This is also X-23's default costume. Next up, this is called X-23 Target X costume. This is X-23 Fang costume. Looks very similar to a Wolverine costume called Fang. And finally, we have X-23 X-Force costume. We're getting more and more X-Force costumes. Now, that's all 4 of her costumes at the recording of this video. Be sure to leave a comment below and let me know your favorite X-23 costume. I'll let you know my favorite X-23 costume at the end of this video. Alright, and real quick, before getting into the powers, let's check out X-23's synergy. The level 25 is 2% damage versus bleeding, and the level 50 is 2% damage versus bleeding. So, yeah, 4% damage versus bleeding in total. And also, real quick, one more thing. X-23 doesn't actually have Spirit. X-23 has Wrath, which works very similar to Wolverine's Fury. It looks the same as well, and yeah, so that's all. Alright, and one more quick note is I only have 1 point in all these powers. This is just from gear or whatever. So don't take the damage that you see in this as, you know, the end-all be-all. So there's that. Now, we'll start with the Adamantium Claws tree. Cleaving Claws is the first power we'll check out. It's a basic, it'll cause a bleed, and it's a melee attack. So it'll do physical damage and bleed. You can stack the bleed up to 3 times. This is what it looks like on enemies. Next up is Crimson Sweep. This is a melee area, so this will cause the enemy to take physical damage and also cause them vulnerability, which will make them take 10% extra damage. This also has a 50% chance to apply 1 stack of Cleaving Claws. That's that same bleed from that last power. This is what it looks like. It's an AoE. Next up is Rip to Shreds. While these guys shoot me, I'll read it out. It's a melee attack. It does physical damage, vulnerability. Enemy takes 25% damage from Cleaving Claws, bleed effect for 8 seconds. So this one works with Cleaving Claws. It also costs Fury. This is what it looks like. Slash and Hack, the next melee attack, physical damage, and 10% per Cleaving Claws. So another one that will reap the benefits of Cleaving Claws. This is what it looks like. Next up, we have Bloody Harvest. This is make a spinning leap with your claws outstretched. This will do physical damage and regenerate health for each enemy hit. So this is a channeling type power, so you're going to want to hold it down, and it drains wrath while you hold it down. Next is Disembowel. Plunge your claws deep into an enemy's gut. This does physical damage, 2 hits, stuns the enemy, and cooldown reduced by 4 seconds when you hit a bleeding enemy with this power. This is what it looks like. And finally, in the Adamantium Claws tree, we have Seeing Red. If you pop this, it'll restore 100% of your maximum Wrath. It'll buff your damage rating, your crit rating. It'll restore Wrath each time Cleaving Claws bleed effect deals damage, and reduce the cooldown of Dancing Blades, and when you hit with Rip to Shreds or Disembowel. This also has a 30-second cooldown itself, and it shares a cooldown with Whirling Dervish, which is over here. We'll get into this one later. This is what this looks like. It's just a buff. Next up, we have the Deadly Operative tree. This is Graceful Maneuver. What a maneuver! This is attack and move speed buff for 7 seconds, and it also will roll you around. So this is a good mobility power. Sometimes she'll roll, sometimes she'll flip, sometimes she'll sprint. It's got a bunch of different animations. It's pretty cool, and it does give you that movement speed buff. Next up, we have Heart of a Beast. This has a passive effect where you can see enemies on the minimap. It'll increase your health. You'll get health regeneration, you know, like a healing factor type of dealio. Also, when your health is below 50%, you'll get even more health regeneration per second for a little bit. And it's also a crowd control break, so when you pop it, this is what it does. It's just your CC break. Next up is Fluid Stance. This is a toggle. This will increase your crit hit, your projectile deflection, your damage rating. Your Twirling Lunge has no Wrath cost, and Leaping applies stacks of Cleaving Claws, as well as Cyclone Kick, and Open the Jugular, damage plus 18%, or, you know, it depends on the points you have in it. That goes up. And when you use a movement power, you'll gain Dexterity, so it'll give you Dexterity. Your entire party will get Dexterity. And this is what it looks like. It's just a toggle. And when you use a movement power, there you go, you gain that Dexterity, and that goes to everyone in your group. Next up, after that, we have Ferocious Stance. This is another stance, so it's another toggle. This one also does crit rating, defense rating, damage rating for damage over time powers now. The last one was for movement powers. This one's for damage over time powers. This one, when you crit or brute, you will gain accuracy for everyone in your group. And you can only have one of these toggles on at a time, so as you can see when I put this one on, it turned the other one off. Next up, we have X-23 Sig. It's called Dancing Blades, a signature melee movement bleed. This has them all. It's got everything. It does tons of physical damage. It's puts some bleeds on, and you can use it up to 6 times within 15 seconds. And it also has a power synergy with Trigger Scent, which is X-23's ultimate power. This is what it looks like on enemies. You can use it 6 times within 15 seconds. Then it goes on cooldown for 25 seconds. And finally, in the deadly operative trees, we have Covert Assassin. Your lifelong training gives you the ability to move quickly and silently. If you activate this, it'll make you stealth for 4 seconds, or depending on how many points you have in it, it has a cooldown of 10 seconds. The cooldown is reduced by 2 seconds when you defeat an enemy, and it also has a passive effect. 8% chance to completely evade damage, dodge rating, and damage rating versus enemies not targeting you. This is what it looks like when you use it. Oh, I'm invisible now. Where did I go? Oh, see you later, sir. Doodles. And finally, we have the acrobatics tree. First up, we have, I don't know how to say this one. Capoeira? Maybe? I don't know. It's a melee attack, does physical damage. Damage plus 50% for 10 seconds when you use a movement power. So if you use a movement power, it'll do more damage. This is what it looks like on enemies. Next up, we have Cyclone Kick. Jump into the air, delivering 3 spinning slashes with the claws on your feet. This does physical damage, 3 hits, and the cooldown is reduced if you use a movement power within the last 10 seconds. This is what it looks like on enemies. It hits 3 times. Then we have Lethal Claws. This is another basic attack. This is physical damage and damage plus 50% for 10 seconds when used as movement power. This is what it looks like on enemies. Then we have Twirling Lunge. This is a melee movement power. This does physical damage. Fly into combat from a spinning leap. Let's find some dudes to use it on. This is what it looks like on enemies. Next up, we have Rending Leap. This is a melee movement area. This does physical damage and weakens enemies. The enemy will deal 10% less damage for 8 seconds after being hit with this. This is what it looks like on enemies. Then we have Open the Jugular. This can only be activated within 4 seconds of using a movement power. This does physical damage. Execute 1% damage per 1% of targets missing health. So you have to use a movement power first, and then it does crazy amounts of damage. So I'm going to use a movement power first, and then this is the power itself. And finally, in the Lethal Acrobatics tree, we have Whirling Dervish. This, again, remember, it shares a cooldown with Seeing Red. It also restores 100% of your maximum wrath, and it buffs your damage rating, your crit rating, restore 50 wrath when you activate a movement power, and reduce the cooldown of Dancing Blades when you critically hit with Cyclone Click or Open the Jugular. Yeah, so it also shares a cooldown. This is what it looks like. It will restore your wrath to full if you're not, and it just looks like that. And finally, we have the ultimate power. This is called Trigger Scent, double attack speed. All crits become brutal strikes, movement speed plus 50%, regenerate 100% health instantly, and regenerate 700 health per second. Buff lasts for 20 seconds, cooldown 10 minutes if it's at rank 1. Let's check this ultimate out on Doc Ock here. Boom, that's what it looks like. It makes you glow all fancy and red. And it makes you do crazy amounts of brutal strikes. Everything you do, every time you crit, it's a brutal. So you shouldn't see any crits in here. I did just see a crit though. There you go. Trigger Scent. Still buffed too. It wore off. It lasted long enough to eviscerate that entire boss. And it's that time for the end of the video. I told you I'd tell you what my favorite costume was, and I am going to have to say it is the X-23 Target X costume. I feel like the detail in this thing is absolutely amazing. It's got all kinds of different colors and different articles, I guess. It seems a lot better than the other ones in my opinion. It's hands down my favorite. And yeah, that's it. So all that being said, I just want to say thanks a ton for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this at least a little bit, and I hope you have an amazing day and a fantastic night. And other than that, I got nothing else. So see you later. Hail Hydra.